Hello, and welcome back, and thank you for joining me. Let's talk about heaven and what we call death today. Hmm, yeah, and the other side. Why don't we? This is a special request topic from the comments here on YouTube, which, by the way, I always invite. Questions and comments are a natural part of spiritual inquiry, after all, because what is spiritual practice but a deep self-inquiry? What is practicing A Course in Miracles completely undoing and changing our perception, completely clarifying it? What is that but a process of inquiry where questions arise? And there come days, don't there, where there seem to be more questions than answers. So I'm always open to your questions about this course, about spirituality in general, all of that, including special topics for conversation like this one. So the question relates to what we refer to as death. What happens when this organism craps out and dies? So it appears. And we'll come back to this particular emphasis on so it appears. What happens then? Is there another side? Well, what is heaven like? Is there a heaven? All of these things, questions that we naturally and rightly want to ask. And perhaps you were raised in a tradition, a religious or spiritual tradition, or more than one tradition that talked extensively about this. And perhaps you got some answers that resonated with you. And perhaps you did not. Just to guess. Yeah. So here in the world, we appear to be a physical body. This appears to be me. It's not me. As I always say, this is a pixelated image on your screen. It's a series of dots, which is not me, nor is the image that I appear to be touching right now me. The physical body is not you. It is not the Son of God. Anything that is perishable, anything that changes in any way or transforms or shifts in any way is not of God and is therefore illusion. God is changeless, eternal, whole, complete, constant. This is our reality. Changelessness, boundlessness, no limits whatsoever. This is indeed a limit, is it not? In more ways than one. So we naturally ask the question, what happens when this thing loses its vigor completely and slumps onto the ground, lifeless? And we don't know when this is going to happen. It could be in just a couple of minutes, or it could be many decades from now. We don't know. So we ask, what happens? And that's a very good question. So here in the world, we're often led to believe that we're going to pass over to the other side. to a place that is likened to a paradise where we'll meet up with our dog, for sure, right? With your dog. I mean, totally. Yeah. We'll meet up with our loved ones. We'll meet up with our family and friends, and we'll all live blissfully happily ever after inside the pearly gates or a garden under which rivers flow. Something like that. So let's enter A Course in Miracles and the pure non-dual teachings of A Course in Miracles. So there is no other side. Also, there is no death. One of the ideas from the workbook that can seem either completely beautifully reassuring or downright shocking. I'm not sure which that is for you, or which it was when you first encountered it, and perhaps you're about to encounter it. One of the ideas from the workbook for students is there is no death. The Son of God is free. Yeah, there is no death. The Son of God is free. There is no other side. And why can we say that there is no other side? There is no other anything. There is no other. There is only perfect oneness, and we have never left our source. Capital S. And another idea that we're often told, I certainly had this fed to me. Some of you may have had it fed or force-fed, gavage style, force-fed to you. Perhaps it felt just like that. If you're not familiar with the term gavage from French, it's how foie gras is made by sticking a tube down a duck or a goose's throat and pumping grain into it, force feeding. Yeah. That's what causes the swelling, the fatty swelling of the liver. Yeah, I'm just saying. That's how it's done. Perhaps your spiritual and religious training felt like that. I'm certainly one that had those moments of thinking, I don't believe what the adults are telling me. This doesn't ring true with me. It does not connect. It does not resonate, and not at all. And sometimes I would say something because I was that kid in Sunday school. And if the adults felt some kind of, oh boy, here we go again, this guy's back, some kind of dread, I understand. Sometimes I didn't ask the question, but I always asked it internally because these ideas of exclusivity made no sense to me. So we're often told, gavaged, force-fed, the idea that heaven is an exclusive place. It's like a club where you have to be on the list in order to gain admission. And if you're not on the list, you're going to get bounced. There's nothing you can do because there are supposedly these pearly gates with a dude named St. Peter sitting there with his guest list, his approved A-list, his registry of the chosen few, and they're in the club and they get to go and have triple martinis and lounge by the pool inside the pearly gates while everyone else remains outside, cast out, unwanted, excluded. Mm-mm. It's not an exclusive club. There is only perfect oneness, and there is, in fact, no death. The physical body has a limited shelf life, for sure. It may last several decades. And again, as we said earlier, it may only last the next 15 minutes. I mean, we don't actually know. But what we can do while we appear to be here is take these ideas to heart and really contemplate them. There is no death. The Son of God is free. So it is illusion to think that, well, okay, well, there's going to be a an eternal cosmic playground where my loved ones and I get together in this form, haha, no, and have a party. First of all, here's something. We never actually really enter a body to begin with. You are not a body. Another prominent idea from A Course in Miracles is, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. In fact, that is repeated in lessons 201 through 220 as a refrain. The ideas that I just referenced are a review period. The workbook is set up this way, where there are a number of lessons, and then a period of review where one goes back over these ideas with the intention of seeing them in a different light so that the message sinks in and we get it, get it. All of the repetition, including the rhyme scheme there, is deliberately placed in English, at least, so that we get it. So it sticks. I'm not a body. I am free, for I am still as God created me. So there is no other side. What happens when the physical body peters out and loses its umph? Well, first of all, it's not you. So does this mean that you're going to experience the instant bliss of enlightenment, what we call awakening? The subject of yesterday's video, how it all actually works, which if you're curious, I invite you to watch. Because that video talks about how we get there, how it actually happens, and the power that we have to effect this. Yes, it does not come from without, because there is nothing outside you. So what happens when this thing peters out? Well, at this point, it's going to be something completely and totally different than what we're used to when we take this to be us. If you are completely and totally awakened, if you have completely set the ego aside and learned under the guidance of our inner teacher to perceive things, the world, yourself, other people, just as they are. If you have clarified your perception, then truth dawns of itself and awakening dawns. That's what we call enlightenment, realizing God, final realization, liberation. I mean, those are all just names. Let's go with the name, the term, the label, awakening. But when we've clarified our perception totally, truth dawns of itself. That's awakening. We awaken to where we've always been, at home in God. So that can happen today. That can happen in the next hour or the next minute. It's another thing we don't know is when our full awakening is going to come. So if you leave aside the physical body and you're not yet awakened, what's going to happen? Well, you won't be awakened because there will still be some clinging to the ego. this false sense of self because your perception will not be fully and completely clarified. So, what does this then look like? Well, at this point, whether you go in for the concept of multiple lifetimes or not doesn't actually matter. Whether you believe in this or you don't, if you have practiced or studied Eastern philosophy such as Buddhism or Hinduism, then of course those two traditions posit a cycle of rebirth, death and rebirth, death and rebirth. In other words, multiple lifetimes. So I have studied Tibetan Buddhism in this lifetime. I did so back in the 1990s and 2000s and learned a great deal. One of the things that my teacher at the time, Lama Michael Conklin from Portland, Oregon, said is that if you think you're a body, when you leave it, you will want one back. You'll want to get into one because that's what you think you are. And that stuck with me. So all of these lifetimes, including this present one, are in fact a dream experience. They're illusion because we're at home in God. So when, in the terms that we use here in the world, you die, you don't die. We don't die. The Son of God does not die. There is no death. The Son of God is free. But here in conventional parlance, where we think we're a physical body, when it's gone, then are you or are you not awakened? If not, then what will come? Well, more opportunities to awaken. What will that look like? Who knows? One thing that we can certainly say is that time is not linear. So a next dream lifetime could be in what we're considering the past right now. It could be in what we're considering the future, because linear time itself is an illusion. So too is space and the ego itself. So until we awaken from the dream, we keep dreaming. So this may or may not be the slightest bit encouraging, but what I hope is that contemplating this inspires you to practice, to forgive the Son of God. Because right now, we're coming back to the choice that we all have in the present moment to choose forgiveness instead of condemnation and blame, to choose truth instead of illusion. Here, as we're learning, as we're waking up, choice is very meaningful. Ultimately, there's nothing to choose. There is no other. There are no choices. There isn't no to anything. There is only perfect oneness. But here, while we don't realize it, we must choose in order to wake up, in order to go home, in a manner of speaking. We've never left our source, but you get what we're saying. In order to have this happen for us, there is everything that we can do about it right now. And I hope that you take heart in this. You don't have to wait until this thing peters out in order to wake up. In fact, if you do, think of all the forgiveness lessons that will have come and gone. They will be repeated to you, presented to you. Think of, even if you don't go in for the idea of one successive lifetime after another, and if that doesn't matter to you and you can't go along with that, you don't have to. Just think of this lifetime. Think of your current lifetime, however long that has been up to this point, and how lessons show up again and again until we learn them. Same with our forgiveness lessons. We are presented in our experience with the same lessons over and over again until we do something about them, in a manner of speaking, aren't we? Until we learn them. So if you have not fully and completely forgiven yourself, the Son of God, space-time, the ego, all compound phenomena, if your forgiveness is not wholly complete, these lessons will return for you. Until it is complete. So what can we do right now? Forgive. Truly forgive anything that comes up in your experience of life that is not wholly joyous is just such an opportunity to forgive. When we do this under the guidance of our inner teacher, we release all of it, all of our deep unconscious guilt. And our inner teacher clarifies it for us. It is gone. When you learn a forgiveness opportunity, it is not repeated. You don't have to repeat it. It's like passing an exam in school. You don't have to repeat it. And if you miss forgiveness opportunities, they'll simply crop up again. This is an illusion. A lifetime, however long that may be, in what we conceive to be years, is illusion. Multiple lifetimes, illusion. So the question of what about our loved ones? Well, love is perfect and whole and one. Everyone is included because there is only perfect oneness. So when we're awake in God, it's total. It doesn't mean that we will necessarily see our loved ones in their current form, their current human form or dog form, or whatever that may be. We're limitless. And this is not limitless, is it? So what do? We use it as a tool while we appear to be here. We have work to do. Forgiveness work, which is joyful. And we're replacing our fearsome illusions of lack and death and suffering with peace, with love. Every forgiveness lesson that you recognize and that you take full advantage of and learn is less time in the round of suffering. It compresses time, which is a complete illusion. We have everything to do right now, and there is a lot that is in our power to do, to bring this awakening about. So we're invited to do it. Okay. So, excellent question. Yeah, thank you. To the extent that this conversation or any other conversation raises further questions, I again invite you to please go ahead and ask them right here. And if you have not yet subscribed, we'd love to have you do that. This is the subscription button here. It's that arrow in the corner of your screen. So if you click and hover over that, you'll be prompted to subscribe and join us. So we have several conversations each week as we go through the text of A Course in Miracles and occasionally pause to have a special dedicated conversation just like this one. So please subscribe and join us. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and I will see you all again very soon.